Hello and welcome to the 80 something episode of Now and Zen. Today we have Subhraag Singh, the inventor of the Infinitone. He is back with the new and improved Infinitone 2. And let me say, there are so many tools in the toolbox that are so wonderful to use that I'm very excited to talk about this, and I'm sure he is as well. So welcome, Subhraag, and thanks for coming
Thank
on.
you. It's been a long time. I'm excited to reconvene and reconnect and like share our progress in these last couple of years since we've connected.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about how I don't like tomatoes, but I do like microtuning. So I figure if that's the hypocrisy of it, right? It's like I go in the YouTube comment sections, I see the parts where like people hear a triad and it's pretty much okay, but they're like, "Oh, this is so out of tune," and I think to myself, how are they this weak? Like, what's going on here? But then I can't eat a tomato, so
I was throwing that right back at you, Steve. It's like you can listen to 37 EDO but not eat tomatoes. Like what's the deal here?
I know I'm not a true Renaissance man. I've got to, before I can rag on the prudes, I've got to be able to just eat a tomato in one bite. Um,
Before we started recording, I was sharing my experience with bananas. Like my mom gave me too many bananas when I was a baby, or just whatever that was like they would give me, and then I just got so sick of them for years. I don't know, a decade. I was like, I don't like bananas. I don't like bananas. And then one day I thought, well, banana seems like a good food to eat. Like I should like bananas. So I just psyched myself up. I was like, I like bananas. I like bananas. And the first time I ate a banana, it was like nasty and yucky and just mushy. And then slowly after a couple of days, my brain and my body adjusted and I literally eat bananas 6 days a week now. So
yeah.
maybe you got to order your Mexican food with tomatoes and just sort of like suck it up. It's like 37 EDO tomatoes, 37 EDO tomatoes. And then you're allowing your nervous system to acquire that taste again.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think that would be really interesting. It speaks, there's a lot about acquired taste that I feel like for lots of people it might be a psychological barrier. Like I feel like if you walked up, to an average person on the street and like asked them, "Hey, would you like to acquire X taste?" and they're like not a fan, they'd be like, "No, I would like to acquire every taste I can." It's not even related to how well you hear or how musical you are. I think it just has to do with your attitude towards the unknown, really.
yeah. Yeah, I think I mean that's kind of what I mean, I don't know too much about John Cage, but wasn't that kind of the philosophy is like just, sound is sound and we can find beauty in anything. And if we're just
Eh.
open.
It's funny because I read Empty Words like 12 years ago, but I could not tell you a single intelligent thing about John Cage's philosophy, probably. Some battles are more excruciating than others, and so with music, it's almost like I haven't found my tomato yet. I would
Mm.
like to find I'd like to find something so dissonant in music other than just simply psychologically unpleasant by being like loud or something that I actually have to try really hard to get past it. The closest thing I can think of are unpleasant sounds that induce a nails on a chalkboard response, which doesn't have to be microtonal. Forks scraping on a plate or like an air dryer on my hands. That's the closest I
Yeah.
get. That I hate
Yeah.
that way more than a dissonant microtuning. So
Yeah, yeah. I find myself it's weird. Like a split personality when it comes to these kinds of things with music. Is on one hand, there's part of me that just basks in the glory of harmonic, like pure harmonic tuning and resonance, and that's all I
mm,
want. Like I just want to tune myself to the harmonics and the pure resonance of that, and I just like that. And then on the other side, it's like I like every sound. I want any music that anybody sends to me, I'll listen to it and get something out of it. And so I have this sort of dual personality where I go in and out of this really specificity where I try and hone in laser like and shut out everything else, and then other time where I expand and kind of take everything and it seems to be oscillate like that right now.
yeah.
Right now I've got a little bit of a laser like focus on the harmonics, and then but then it won't last forever. I'll go out and expand again and take other stuff in.
When I was trying out the software,
Yeah.
sort of pivoting into that, personally, there are some ideas in tuning that I haven't realized because I haven't been able to build the tools. And so I think what Infinitone is doing is kind of bridging the gap in a way. I was really impressed with the key trigger system
Yeah.
because actually, I have this piece where it's in three movements and I wrote it for modified piano and viola, and
Hmm.
I'm hoping to play it with that violist again. And like, there's one movement in 15 and one in 31 and one in 22. And with Infinitone, you have key triggers on the keyboard, So you can set those wherever you want, and then they change to whatever tuning you want. So
Yeah.
instead of hooking up a pedal to my computer or having to have my computer next to me and press
Yeah.
Reaper markers to warp to where the tuning is in a way that is really clumsy, I could sit there with a piano like a professional, and in between movements, just hit a note, and then boom, it
Yeah.
goes to the right tuning system, and it's just great. That's amazing.
I like the image of like a professional, like gracefully navigate between what 30 what tuning were they? 30
Yeah, 15, 31, 22
15
are
and
the
31, like a pro,
arrangements.
you know.
Yeah, that's it's called Songs of the Ill and Jaded. Yeah, because it like it ruins the attacker, right? Like if you're at your instrument and you're secretly doing something microtonal, you play something, and they're like, "Wow!" And then all of a sudden, typing in a laptop. Hold on, guys. Gotta check my
Yeah.
DMs for the scala file. There's movement too.
I mean, for me, this also the dynamic microtuning started when I first got into tuning and exploring new stuff. I would pull up a new tuning with a Scala file on whatever synth that would accept Scala files, and I was like, okay, parts 43, great, that's enough tones, 43 tones, right? Oh no, wait, there's some tones in. I know I want the note in between this and that. No, I'm hearing this thing and it's not there. And it's like, okay, what's more? 106 EDO or something like that. Oh, wait, but then that thing is like kind of beating still a little bit. And I know. And so it's just this constant battle between and expanding the number of notes that were in the system, and then realizing, okay, I have 106 notes or however 100 many, and but then how do I play that? I mean, that's a crazy amount of notes to access. Like my keyboard is 48 notes, or even if I have a Lumitone now, still like, how do I get? I mean, $4,000. Well, I can't afford that right now.
Right,
So
yeah.
I want one, but I just and
Yeah.
so the idea came is like, okay, well, I can map whatever notes that I want at any time and just have the notes that I want. So and then I can change them in real
Yeah.
time. So and I could change them every 2 beats if I wanted. I can change them continually. I could change them every 8 bars or just have one scale for a song or whatever. And now I get like I have I have little nephews and my son and all of this stuff. They come, they can play on the keyboard on the white keys and they sound great instantaneously because you can just put the great notes that sound good immediately like on the white keys, and you can't do anything wrong. Where if you're learning to play piano for the first time, it takes years before you can know which notes to play and which not to play, and you're getting actual music. But with Infinitone, you can sound great in a half a second.
It's really revelatory to see how much Infinitone is part of your personal journey, and as you keep evolving and discovering new ways to use these sorts of things, your influence, also grows, and everything. The tools just keep sharpening.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we were talking about how I was gonna eat a big old tomato
I
to
remember.
get my acquired taste into a space where I will no longer be hypocritical. There's people who comment on microtonal videos like, "Oh, there's a bunch of wrong notes. I hate this," and I find we've talked about this a little bit before. I find it happens more in contexts where the audience is listening to very normal music that is not adventurous, and then someone will
Yeah.
post something that they haven't heard before. It surprises them. But if you get someone who makes video game music a bunch and then they suddenly post something microtonal, the audience is going to be hip to it. I think it's really audience dependent.
There is no objective good music as far as I can tell. It's 100% context and relationship oriented. It's like, how am I relating to this? It's all, I mean, harmony itself, it's about relationship, right? It's about the relationship between one note and the other. Like one note can have a completely different meaning according to its context, right? And the music itself, what kind of mindset are we coming to? Who's the person making it? I know personally that I like music a lot better when I know the person and I like that person a lot better. I just have a relationship with it. It sounds better to, it literally just sounds better to me. I mean, it's not, I have no, and and yeah, but I get that question all the time actually, because
Yeah.
microtonality is becoming more well known in the last few years, and there's a lot of, I don't want to call any music bad, but there's a lot of music that does not. It's where the tuning is the exploration of the tuning is the focus, and it's maybe lacking what might normally be considered as like musical values in the sense of like expression of the self and the soul and
Yeah.
communicating something from within and all of that stuff. And so it's more of like a technical exploration than it is like an emotional exploration. And so a lot of people will hear those things, and I get a lot of questions, almost numerous times a week from like random people on the street that I meet and just start talking to about. I mean, I guess I'm in LA, so I mean, I guess it makes a difference that when I just meet someone randomly in the street and they know about microtonal music. I mean, it's probably it's probably because I'm in LA, but
Oh wow,
anyway.
nice.
Yeah, I was shopping for some pants the other day, and and the guy knew about microtonal music, and he was, yeah, but I hear that stuff, and it sounds kind of odd to me. I don't really like it. The notes sound wrong, and all of that stuff. And I was like, well, my general answer to that is that when we speak, we are creating the harmonic series with our voice, right?
Yeah.
And as we modulate the vowels a, e, I, o, we're changing the chords. It's a chord progression because we're changing where the different harmonics resonate, and it's creating a microtonal chord progression, and the tone of our voice is 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 traversing the entire frequency spectrum. I'm not just talking like this. I'm talking like this. I'm so we are as humans microtonal creating microtonal symphonies every time that we communicate. So
Truly.
but that has to also do with context and relationship too, because I mean, as a microtonalist who's particularly interested in the harmonic series and the relationships of these harmonics, I listen to those chord changes in people's voices, but a lot of people just haven't been their attention has not been brought to those things. So it's like if unless you name something and bring attention to it, you oftentimes just don't notice it or don't see it.
Very
So I think
important. Yeah.
once we realize that, birds don't sing in a 12-tone tempered scale, whales. I mean, no, even pianos are stretched. Nothing except for digital synthesizers is in 12-tone equal temperament. So once we start realizing that literally everything is microtonal, the whole notion is microtonal music, out of tune is like just goes out the window. Then we come across your video, like pieces of music, like your recent Christmas video.
Oh yeah, we sold the Infinitone to everybody with Santa. Where's my
which
Santa
is the most,
costume?
which
Oh,
is
here we
one
go. We get the hat. There we go.
which is one of the most terrifying pieces of music I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely
Yes,
terrifying.
this is great. I,
Oh,
I just had that idea the other day because I feel like it's the culmination of that joke that like everyone in that Santa song thinks that the line about Santa seeing you when you're sleeping and knowing when you're awake is creepy. So why not just like ramp that up into deity territory? It's just absolutely insane. Um,
it's perfect. Yeah, I didn't make that connection. The combination of that creepiness with the creepiness of your music is it's supreme. I mean, so
thank you.
yeah, I mean you're at one of those you're an extreme example of whatever. I mean, you're just extreme. I don't know, you're an extreme human.
I love it. Thank you. I'm trying to emulate my inner Paul Dolden on those dense chords that are like brick walls. I still can't get them completely Dolden-esque, but I am getting better at making them just,
Yeah.
harder to detect quality. I was hoping for that one that I could like. It has all 9 notes of the semaphore 9 scale, but some of them are slightly out of tune on purpose.
Okay.
Like there's a high note that I sing that is narrower than it should be, so that it sounds more like a neutral second and sounds weirder than
Oh, okay.
two
Yeah.
fourteenths of an octave. Uh, so it doesn't sound like a 7/10 tone. It sounds like a neutral second that's large
Hmm.
instead. And I the vibe I wanted for that chord was to make it all like a dense brick wall, but vaguely still having like the dominant in it. And like as it
Yeah.
goes on, it gets more and more intolerable and cuts off at like the exact point where you're like, oh, you can still remember the music and get back to it. And also the bass has like a little sting of the dominant note. So I think I nailed it because it's exactly what I wanted. It's just like that dense wall, just at the exact moment that you can't tolerate it anymore, it goes away and the dominant note is back, and you're like, oh, that actually was just a dominant chord the whole time that had like a lot of other stuff in it that wasn't allowed. His omnipotence transcends our mortal plane, where we lie as lowly creatures creatures of the
Masterful work, masterful, masterful. Yeah.
Yeah.
But oh, sorry, go.
Regarding what you said before, I'm so glad that there isn't any kind of objective music. And I also think we underestimate in musical circles the musical intelligence it takes to understand things in different contexts. You know, people who bring fusion together in weird ways, they know about different genres of music in a manner that is difficult to describe. And it's not generally making great music isn't about just exploring one parameter, but you could like explore one parameter, and if you were naturally musical some other great things might happen. But I
Yeah.
definitely think there's a broadness that plays into great music making that is it's just hard to teach, it's hard to acquire, and it's often overlooked.
Well, I heard this quote the other. I was on some TikTok video or something. I wish I could say who exactly said that. I think it was a chef, but I don't know. And maybe someone will chime in the comments and know. They said that the the skills that you need to know whether you are good or bad at something, like whether you're intelligent or dumb, are the very skills that you need to be good at that thing. So
Ah. How unfortunate.
so there's so so you have to, in order to judge if something that you're creating is of value, you have to be able to create a thing of value. Otherwise, so you it's like you have to know that thing in order to know that thing. And so I was thinking this morning, I was just in the shower just before we were, and I was like, you know what? I I think from like the depths of my soul, every child on this planet sh should, I don't think should is the right word, but it would be of great benefit to be introduced to music as a regular part of the daily school practice, and not just any music, but the harmonic series. Every child in the entire planet should be raised to be aware of these relationships of the harmonic series, how the harmonic series works, these different kinds of structures that are within it, and just to understand like the basics of music and music communication, how we're actually using the harmonic series to communicate as humans, and how it's kind of one thing that ties us all together, despite culture and background and belief system and spirituality, atheist, monotheist, polytheist, whatever. We still are tied together by this notion of sound. Even if you're deaf, we're still feeling the vibrations in our body. We're feeling the
Yeah.
harmonics in the rest. I mean, I'm not deaf, so I can't say what it's like, but I mean, I know that I hear more than I hear not with my ears. I hear with my whole body. I can feel
Yeah.
vibrations in the hairs of my toes, It's like
Yeah.
so and those our body is so sensitive. We're so sensitive these harmonic modulations and permutations. I think if every child was given that as part of the context of, along with, I mean, because music is the most influential force on our planet. I mean, look at
Yeah.
all the top the most view, like billions and billions and billions of views YouTube videos. They're all music videos.
Yeah.
It's the one thing. It's this,
Good
and
point.
so if we were to have, and so we're learning math, we're learning history, we're learning our language and all of that stuff. But that's one thing that I think could bring a much more greater level of peace and harmony and understanding to the planet, is that everybody, and so these contexts of what you're doing. I mean, I think it's all sort of based on harmonic relationships. Even when you veer away from it, it's that actually veering away from its sort of fixed point and
Ah.
creating increments and all these things, the kind of the coming in and out of it, which makes it interesting. If everything is just perfectly harmonic, it sounds like one tone. It's just a timbre. So I
Right.
think I think the if we had that inner context of all of these sort of micro relationships within the harmonic series and how we communicate, then we'd be able to much better understand and communicate as musicians, and yeah. So
I work with teaching kids, and I have maybe like two who's a little interested in microtonality.
Huh?
And I have been starting with them teaching the harmonic series, and then trying to just like derive intervals basically in a mathematical
Yeah.
sense. But I do think if you were teaching the harmonic series just to start out, that concept, just starting with the overtone tone series, is simpler than doing interval math, where suddenly there's a top and a bottom to the fraction. Infinitone also, right? Like it sets you up for that because you've got the default settings and the harmonic series strum where you can go through and hit all those keys, and it's just it's nice because you can hear what the harmonic series is in a layout that makes sense. And I think the default layouts are a really strong selling point for Infinitone because you could play with a scale that sounds pretty interesting and in tune without maybe having to know a lot about them. Because there are a
Yeah.
lot of workflows where you have to create your own scale. So then you
Mhm.
would have to know about a scale to do that.
Yeah, a lot of the yeah, that's sort of my goal is to just open it up instantly and you get instantly access to good sounds. I mean, even a child playing piano can't make a good sound out of that piano for years, really, before, because you have to learn rhythm, you have to learn what notes to play and what not to play, and it takes a lot. And even because the notes are out of tune on a piano, they're not immediately gratifying to play because it sounds kind of wonky and weird, and so it takes a long time sort of for your own musicianship to transcend the out of tuneness of the piano itself. Whereas with this, yeah, the notes are in tune and resonant and colorful, and you can have. I mean, I've had like 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds even play on just on the white keys, and they get transfixed for hours. I'm not hours. How long is the attention span as a 5-year-old? But
On the
for a long
Infinitone,
time. Yeah, no, I've had my little nephews like mess around on it, and they have fun.
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I think when you start to play piano and then you hear microtonal stuff later, that microtonal stuff can recontextualize everything you've already heard. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier, too. How you talked to that guy about microtonal music and how things sound off to him. I
yeah,
feel like the way that microtonal music is categorized, it becomes like most of the music you hear is 12 equal, and then microtonality just gets this tiny little place. And I'd love to see. I think what would be great is not for 12 equal to be like eradicated or anything in some contrarian stroke of the pen, but to have a world where there's plurality and
yeah.
microtonality doesn't just mean not 12 tone equal temperament. That would be so
Right.
great. Like it just gets it just gets pigeonholed into such a small word, and it's like it really should be completely backwards. Like 12 equals just this one little tiny aesthetic pin, and then microtonality is like the huge vast cosmos. But then like a person hears like one thing in some microtonal tuning system and they're like, "Oh, that was a bit out of tune to me." So I'm dismissing this entire cosmos now. But not this one. Not 12 tone equal
Yeah.
temperament. So it's just so precisely backwards, and it would be great. I don't think we can ever reach a point where it's fully correct, but I think we'll probably reach a point where at least there's more here, and then the cosmos is still there, but the mainstream sounds have ventured out just a little bit more.
I'm 100,000% backing that mission. Us Westerners, having been born into this tonal system, when we get into microtonality, I mean, I've noticed myself in the beginning, and I've heard other people talking about how it's sad that the other musical traditions which had microtonal, what we consider microtonal tunings traditionally, are sort of ditching them a little bit in favor of 12 tone equal temperament. But what I've been thinking about is, you know what, if you're grown up in that other culture, that tuning system is the norm to you. And so if you adopt this new system, actually that's microtonal to you. So it goes
Yeah,
back to the relationship to, so all of these countries which have these rich musical traditions, and all of their studying, they're bringing in a different tuning system. They're like, oh wow, listen how amazing this is new. It's new to us. And whereas we're seeing is like, oh, they're just doing the Western stuff, and it's too bad. So I think we saw it from the reverse perspective. Like we have this tradition that we've been growing up in. Almost 99.99% of stuff is built within that framework. We just do we just start exchanging and trading, and not only just exchanging stuff culturally, but inventing new ways of playing that didn't exist before. that are more in alignment with our modern ways of thinking and interacting and expressing ourselves.
Absolutely. Once there was a professor that lectured at Ball State who had had experience with that when I was a student there, and he said that 12 equal is different from what they're doing, but they quote don't seem to mind it.
Yeah.
So that makes it not sound that relativistically zen, but I don't know. I guess I almost think that if you there should be some kind of way to get people playing in 4 or 5 different tunings that encompass most of the sounds that you could hear, and then they would be used to more things in general. Like that seems a little bit silly. This is about to get staggeringly unscientific, so hold on to your hats. If I had to estimate, like people always ask me like what they're missing, you know, by not doing microtonality. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know how if you play a major chord, it gives you a certain feeling that people may often incorrectly label happy, but the best thing to call it is just major, right? And then like minor, happy and sad, whatever. Um, and those have certain feelings associated with them. And
Yeah.
all of the chords and things that you could hear in 12 tone equal temperament, they all have certain feelings that correspond to whatever they're doing. You're
Hmm.
getting like 5% of those in 12 tone equal temperament. That would be
Yeah.
my estimate is around 5 to 10% of the emotions that you just get from like simple like harmonic constructs that impress upon you. That's how I
Yeah.
feel about it. It could be even less if
Absolutely.
I discover a bunch more stuff. It could shrink down to 1%, but it's entirely a subjective journey. I haven't even explored JI as much as I should have just because I don't want to multiply fractions a lot, and I really like tempering as an idea. So, but I will. I'm definitely going to get into it more. So there's more stuff in there that I haven't even touched. So, it's
We're kind
crazy.
of we're kind of opposites in a lot of ways. Like I think, but still of the same essence in our interest to explore. I mean the way that I always talk about it with people, I mean literally I mean again, I don't know if it's because I'm in LA, but all the time this conversation comes up, and I always tell people that it's just like color. If imagine Picasso painting with just 12 colors like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and how
And they
would
cannot
that
mix it all. Mixing is not
yeah,
allowed.
no mixing. It's like discrete colors. And that's what it is. And what I find actually it's pretty interesting. I find that non-musicians are grasp this whole concept a lot easier than trained musicians, which is kind of ironic.
That's
And I
odd,
think
isn't
that's
it?
largely because it just makes so much sense that it's like just oh yeah, sound is a vibration and colors, is the vibrations of frequencies of light and music is frequencies of sound. Of course you can use the full harmonic spectrum. But when you're trained with something, your brain becomes locked in these very rigid patterns. And I find that those it's kind of interesting. Those who have the hardest time learning something new are those who consider themselves to be masters of something. They've been working their whole life and they've achieved what, they've been told by others that they're masters and they're sort of sitting on this throne on a pedestal. And those oftentimes seem the hardest people that to take on the new things. And I think that's really, really, really sad. I think, I mean, in my experience of learning all of this stuff, learning anything, like the more you know, the more you don't know. I wake up every
Yeah.
morning, I feel terribly inadequate, inadequate, and that like I feel like a beginner. Like every single day, I was like, oh my gosh, I know nothing. And every day
Yeah.
I'm learning
Same.
more and more and more, and I'm like, I know less and less and less and less and less. And I think if we were to adopt that attitude, we'd be a lot more open to these new kinds of sounds and not be too and it's not just with music, with anything, with new uh anything.
It may be really
Tomatoes, tomatoes, for example, tomatoes.
tomatoes. Yeah. And maybe intimately connected with a thirst for knowledge.
One thing that I've been exploring with recently is, traditionally in microtonal talk, we're talking about the presence of these different intervals. We seem to, in a scale or a tuning or a chord, we seem to weight all of the notes equally. It's like this scale has these ratios and this chord has these ratios or these intervals and all of that stuff. But what I've been noticing and I've been experimenting with a lot is the dynamics, like the relative but not the dynamics, like the gain, the weight, what's the word? Uh,
Just volume,
the
decibels.
vol yeah, the relative volume of the individual notes. So like if you have just a major chord and then like I've been experimenting with just bringing up a fader like a little bit on an 11, like in an upper octave, and it's almost has the effect of like a spice rather than just than a primary component of a chord. And
Yes.
I think one of the things that would be really interesting to I've been experimenting with, and I think the along with the tuning of notes, the actual volume of those notes in relationship to all the other ones is as important as the tuning.
Yes.
Um,
It's so important. I am so glad you mentioned that. And actually, there's a podcast episode coming out slightly before you that talks about the same conclusion at
no
length.
way, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
One of
maybe I'm
the
part of the collective consciousness or something that
Yes,
we're
it's
doing.
so important. You can not only hide notes that would be more unconventional that way or blend them in a better way, but you also can create, I think, dissonances that aren't ordinarily allowed. One of the first times I thought about this was when I was looking at a Jacob Collier transcription and I heard a passing chord, and I was like, oh, there's no way that has B flat, A flat, and A in it. And then I
Mhm.
sat down and like played it a few times in a row. But it's so soft and ringy. That's
Yeah.
the kicker, is like you prioritize the elements you want to be, I think, identifiers of the chord, or
Mm.
maybe things that feel rooted generally in that sort of activity. Also, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. We also talk about psychoacoustic tricks a little bit on the other one, and there's so many. Did you know that pitch perception changes with volume? So louder pitches sound slightly higher.
Mm.
So in some music that I have, I've purposely, if I want a note to be flatter, I usually make it slightly quieter on purpose.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I've been doing that the opposite way of how most people like if a note is too close to the harmonic series and it needs to go a little bit flatter, I'd make it quieter. So, that kind of thing.
It's also like with there's two notes playing together within a critical band of the ear where it's creating a
Yes.
kind of a beating sound.
Yeah.
It will literally sound in between those two notes. So a lot of people think that piano, for example, is not a microtonal instrument, but if you listen to Thelonious Monk, for example, playing all those cluster notes, he's actually getting literally getting in between the cracks. He's not even trying to. I mean, it sounds in between.
It's
And so
amazing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of these things with volume and these clusters, it actually literally is. I mean, someone with like Jacob, he is such a musical magician. I don't know how he does what he does harmonically, but he's able to get these sort of perceptions of microtonal fluidity on a 12 tone keyboard, which is just it's astounding. I mean, the way he's just again, I think it has to do with dynamics, these clusters, and sort of the movement of sound, and he's able to get this sort of fluid kind of pitch. And again, there's no he's bringing in all of the different elements of music into play. There is no one single, and he'll also sing microtonally as he's playing on 12 tone equal temperament too, which can shift perception of things as well. So uh,
Yes. He's an
yeah.
absolute wizard. What was it like introducing the Infinitone to him?
Oh, that's a great question. How do I describe that? It was I mean magical is probably the right word. It was
We're in the right
It
place.
was what I would say is resonance, you know? When two notes come together, it's like here he is in his musical brilliance and seeing this, you know, in my it's my opinion, but I think he has a better understanding of harmony than anybody, at least within the basic sort of five limit 12 tone, but with extended just intonation five limit-ish kind of domain. I mean, I don't know of anybody who has a more fluid command of harmony.
Yeah.
And so it was just, you know, to be able to introduce him to these new possibilities and to see his already like massively expanded harmonic knowledge get even bigger. Like it's like, oh wow, I can access this stuff. It was a magical experience, absolutely magical. I was there when he played the Lumitone for the first time as well, and the way that he was able to navigate those keys for the first time, like his mentor Barak Shmuel was there, and Barack sort of showed him some of the territory, and then Jacob was like, "Ooh, what about this? And what about this? And what about this?" And he just like in his infinite musical mastery was just able to make it sound stunning instantaneously.
Wow.
Um,
Well, let's hope he
yeah,
uses it in some music soon.
I hope. Oh my
Oh
gosh,
my
it's about
goodness.
time. It's about. I mean, I get comments on these new videos that I'm posting for Infinitone, the social media videos. Like I get so many comments. Jacob Collier needs to see this, or show this to Jacob,
Yeah, they don't know.
or sarcastically saying Jacob Collier should not see this. You know, and little do they know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how much I'm at liberty to talk about all of this because there
We
are
can edit
some.
anything out spicy if you say something spicy and
You know,
later
I
you're
don't.
like,
No,
oh, no
I don't know.
thanks.
I
We
mean,
can.
it's not spicy, but just there. There's some stuff is secret and some stuff is not, and I'm not sure what is secret and what is not. But
Oh,
anyway,
sure, sure.
yeah, there is something that he created with Infinitone in Jesse Volume 4, which has been nominated for Album of the Year.
Was it in Box of Stars?
Actually, I don't even know. He told me that it was in there, and I listened to the whole album like 3 times. I still don't know.
Yeah,
But I
I
think it's
couldn't.
he does these textual things where he's just layering all these kinds of sounds. So somewhere in there, he told me that something he made with Infinitone is in there. So
That's
hopefully there'll be
fascinating.
more.
There was one thing I noticed, which is that as Jacob Collier actually gets more and more into microtones, the people who think of him as a microtonal meme continue to not notice that generally and only remember that he modulated to G sharp and in the Bleak Midwinter. But this is a really, I don't know, I guess it's an encouraging sign for me because it's like, okay, in the Bleak Midwinter, a G half sharp modulation is great. That's like one thing, and it's awesome. And then in the Christmas song, there's all this stuff where like the tuning system is being changed and there are other intervals divided funny and actually like a harmonic series 7 limit moment in a 2-5-1 cadence and things being moved by 10 cents and stuff, which is
Oh,
absolutely
what?
ridiculous.
Oh, wow. Okay, I
Yeah,
gotta check
there's
that.
one let's see. I'm offering this simple phrase. Like the simple phrase word is notated as
Yeah.
10 cents. It sounds like a little bit of a higher shading, so I don't know how accurate it is, but it's definitely really tiny. It might hover around 20 or 25. I think the way Jacob's done it with the software, he just like nails it, and I don't know if he's done any editing at all. But like these are more advanced concepts, but people are talking about it less. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
we have this weird situation where the more you want to break ground, the less people are going to care, even though it's amazing. So it's all about finding that balance. And I think I see with Jacob getting more and more into it, the hope is that after the Christmas song, he's like into Zen harmonics at the end, and maybe people will care. Hopefully they will. I don't know. They say they
I,
will.
I I think his audience is really waiting for it, and
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
waiting.
I mean, after Jesse Volume 4, in which he's just basically expanding essentially the 12 tone 5 limit universe to its maximum. I mean, again, there's stuff in there. There's beyond that, but still, like I remember the first time I listened to uh, uh, Jesse Volume 4 for the first time. I went for a walk, and then I was like, yeah, I mean, it's amazing on so many levels, but it's also just not reaching some very, very, very basic next level harmonic, kind of possibilities.
Yeah,
And then I put on Rami
100%.
Olsen's new album. What was it called? Radical Tenderness? Isn't that what it's called?
That's the name,
Anyway,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So I put that on right afterwards, just for contrast, and immediately within seconds, like I was catapulted into new territory that Jacob didn't even touch for a second. So I think, and it felt so natural, and so I think I'm really hoping, and I think a lot of people are. I mean, based on the feedback that I'm getting from everybody to know that knows him and comments and all of that stuff, I think everybody's waiting for him, and I think he's the person to do it.
He would
Yeah.
just, I think, effortlessly come up with ideas that people would want to hear that might be secretly Zen. You
Yeah,
know,
well, he's the way. I mean, all of his pop songs to a normal listener sound just like a pop song, but if you listen to the actual harmony of it, it's extremely advanced. So he has a way of bridging this like really, really, really advanced harmony and making it sound, yeah, accessible and normal. And I think he's the perfect person to bring these new sounds. Yeah, I mean, I just listened to his this video where he was reimagining all these Christmas songs. It was an interview video, and he's spontaneously reharmonizing all this. I mean, he's doing is absolutely it's beyond, beyond anything that anybody else that I know of can do. And
I had the
yeah.
pleasure of seeing him live in Indianapolis, and
Mhm.
I am just completely blown away at his harmonically innovative piano playing. I think there was one part where he was playing Somebody to Love for the audience on piano, and there's a
Yeah.
part where there's like a dominant chord that's 2 bars, and
Yeah.
Jacob got to that dominant chord in the most insane way I've ever heard. He basically just sat down and he got there. And I'm pretty sure he modulated through 3 keys and then it all just like set up to that last dominant chord somehow and still worked. And it was, I, it's really hard to think that fast without planning. Like, I'm a piano player.
Yeah.
I could play that, right? Like, it would be easy for me to play if I saw it in sheet music. But then if I like went on stage and tried to improvise like a cool vamp up to a dominant chord, it would have like 4 interesting chromatic chords in it and not like 12. And it wouldn't carry me through like the entirety of just 12 tone color in like the breadth of 2 bars. Just like right off the top of his head. He's just insane. Yeah.
Yeah, he's I think there's no comparison ever probably to what he can do. I mean, he's just it's a pure magic. He's a magician on so many levels in that regard. And yeah, I mean, I and so many people are waiting for him to get a Lumitone, get in, start using Infinitone publicly and
Publicly!
and
We'll
yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah.
Infinitone, I'd love
Yeah.
to dive in and explore some of the new features with you since Infinitone
Yeah.
1, it has a certain workflow, and Infinitone 2 has some really nice differences. Would you want to go to your computer and maybe explain them a little bit and I could chime in,
Yeah.
or I could try coming over to my computer and seeing what I like and
Sure.
then
I'll do a little intro and then you can show me what you've been doing and we could have a little dialogue and maybe discover some new things that we neither of us had thought of were possible.
Yay,
Through-
I love it.
Okay, so here's Infinitone 2.0. You just drop it into your DAW, open up the instrument, and there's sound immediately if we have this all hooked up right. Yeah. Da,
Yay,
da, da,
harmonic
da.
C.
So So yeah, that's the idea is like anybody can just sound good instantly and explore new stuff without having to know anything.
So Subrag, can you
Yeah.
explain to me in that I know this is the one that you use in the commercials because it's the awesome harmonic series.
Yeah.
How many harmonics are actually in there, and how is the keyboard mapped?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Well, we can go. So first of all, just a little basic overview of the UI here and all of that, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty details or juicy details. Um, and so basically, yeah, you can I have a tuning of this mapped on the white keys here. And then I can click either a button on the UI here and change the scale. I gotta get my microphone out of the way of my hands. Or I can have these key triggers down here and I can actually change the sound with the actual keys. So if I'm playing in real time, I can actually change the scales and chords as I go. So, and then but these are all created here. So this is what I call the simple view.
Hmm.
And that's where you just get direct access to whatever is in the preset. You can change, you can have some, move some LFOs and change the synth sound and some different things. But in the back end is where all the scales are created. And so for this one, for example, I have a starting harmonic of 1 in the harmonic generator and a repeat ratio of 32/1. And I've just selected, maybe put my glasses on here. I can see better. Um, so I can manually include or exclude any note that I want. And this particular one, I've excluded some of them up here just to sort of create my own custom scale. So this particular one, I'm mapping from the low C on the keyboard up to the F. So I'm having a sort of fixed number of notes per scale here. So this one I have starting harmonic of 8. This one I have, um, yeah, this one's starting harmonic 6. So I'm getting
Ooh.
kind of like some minor.
Ooh.
Oh, that inharmonic strum.
So it's like that one has like a sub minor vibe, and then the semitones in it are smaller as a result.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. And
Yeah.
here's so I'm just able to sort of what's great about the harmonic series is you can it all sounds good basically, so you can't really go wrong. So I can just you can kind of just select whatever notes that you want according to your feeling, and it's just going to sound good. It's, whatever you do.
Fascinating, yeah. So then that made it the logical choice for sort of the first preset scales that people
Yeah,
see when they come to this screen.
exactly. Yeah, you can't go wrong.
That's great. We talked a little bit about the key triggers before, but I think it might be useful to go over all of the different in functions. Might be useful to go over the different functions Infinitone has, because
Sure.
we have key triggers there, and what that does is it changes the layout, and um, we also have a morphing interface that allows you to morph from tuning A to tuning B, which is just really cool. I think being able to play that. I actually have an expression pedal in my closet there, and it is my goal in this next upcoming month to hook up that expression pedal to my computer and have it automate that parameter, and then everything
Oh
about
yeah.
microtuning is just in the DAW, and then I can play and use the morph live, and then I could use the key triggers to get to other morphs. It's like if I have one morph and I'm bored with it, I can switch to another morph. So this key
Absolutely.
trigger morphing thing in combo, I think, is it just opens up everything for someone who wants to be a player, because it not only goes into the DAW, but like when I was playing with my Santa improv, I had it all automated in the DAW. But it's
Yeah,
also nice to know that you can control it with equipment yourself, a la a mod wheel.
absolutely. Yeah. So yes. So let's see. So here's a chord progression preset. You have there's scales and tunings and sort of chord progressions and different kinds of effects and things. This is a chord progression called interdimensional vistas. We had a lot of fun naming all these. And and so here there's a let's see, I think nine, one, two, three, four, one, two, eight. Yeah, there's nine tones, and each one is a chord tone and a chord progression. And so I can play the chords with the right hand and then change the chords with the left hand here with these key triggers. And there's 5 different chords, and you'll notice that they will glide in between the chords.
Before you start, can you tell me? I see something that looks like a bunch of the colors stacked on top of each other. Is that a key trigger or is that a chord? What is that?
Yes, that's where I have this one particular map. I have all the chord tones on one key. I can use one finger, or I can access the individual notes.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, there's in the back here. There's keyboard mapping, so I can just set up custom. So here I have key 57, trigger 61, 62, and etc. So that's what this is, key 57. And so
Wow.
you can put chords on any key as well.
Wow. Now that is mapping.
Yes. So anyway, so you can play a chord each with one finger. Right. There you go.
Hey, that's the one you played in the commercial.
Yeah, it is. That's kind of my go-to.
That's a really good
Uh,
one.
it's nice because it's very basic harmonic motion, and it sounds pleasing to people's ears, even if they're not attuned to microtonal harmony. So it's pretty. It's one that I find that pushes the boundaries enough to make it sound microtonal, but not enough to make people turned off, except for the few. rogue commenters in the social media comments who disagree, but
The
most
super
people.
prudes.
The super, the super proof. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so here's there's a tab here that has the morph parameters, the automatic morph parameters. So I can change the actual amount of time that it'll take from one chord to get to the other. So here I'll put it at like what, like 4 seconds, so it's long, and then I'll actually change the morph curve too. So here it sort of goes fast and then it slows down. Let's see. So that can be all animated, and so you can also do it, you know, or just turn morph off. Snap to the chord like that.
Yeah. So are those all otonal chords, and are their roots related by standard relationships?
Yeah, those are all 100% otonal. Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
just harmonic chords. Um, yeah, and so here, there's also a manual morph too if you want to get from one place to the other manually. So I'm gonna put in um, the origin and the destination here, and
Yeah.
then I can play the chord. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. And you can stop anywhere in between too, and then you can be in a weird in between zone.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I mean, what's wrong with that chord? Amazing.
that's great. That's like a train with the perfect amount of shimmer to make me question my faith.
And then here, speaking of shimmer, I have a LFO here,
Yeah.
where there's LFO in the background. It's control the different parameters are controlled by the XY grid. So this is an LFO on the stretch parameter. So you'll see the notes. Wait, it doesn't work with the morph, I think. Put it on here. I can make that more extreme actually. Let's see
That
what it
is
looks like.
so cool. I was playing with LFO a little bit. I didn't use it in my improvisation, but I noticed that not only did it affect that visual of like how in tune the notes are, but you also have the scale itself wiggling. Is that wiggle like this is such a nerdy question. Is that wiggle accurate in terms of distance, or is the animation just the same for all of them?
No, it's accurate. You can hear it's like
Wow. It's crazy how far it goes and it still sounds like the chord.
yeah.
Wow. That's really incredible.
One other thing real quick that's really fun.
Yes.
I call this cinematic megachords, and it's based off the massive chord that you will hear at the beginning of many movies. And I did not put the name of that in there for trademark reasons, but I think you'll recognize. So that it all starts off as unison. There's a whole bunch of notes playing at one time, and it expands to a big chord. And I just play it with one finger and change the time. I can make it go super slow. That's
Wow.
yeah. And I can also change the sound. So there's synths in here too. So every tuning preset has a synth preset, and then I can change the sound too. Here's a different one. So if you don't like the
That's so cool. How do you generate that shape that's in the visualizer that shows you how in tune the sound is? Like basically, if there's more activity, it's less in tune with JI, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I developed I sort of reinvented a wheel in some ways, though this is in the process of potentially being patented, so I won't describe too much. But
Yeah.
I basically I created a technique that I didn't know existed, but that technique has never been used to visualize harmony before. So like in the past, all that was possible is you'd see the Saju patterns, which is created by it's pretty well known online, and it's created by putting one frequency in the x-axis and one frequency in the y-axis of an oscilloscope, and then you can create these beautiful patterns when they're standing waves. And it's been done in three dimensions as well, but then you're limited to only three notes. Well, this version is something similar, but it can be done with any number of notes, and you can see when something is in tune and out of tune. For example, let me bring up the harmonic series itself, like the the coveted sacred harmonic series. And
Ooh, there it is.
so here's this is 50 hertz is a low. So if you're listening on uh head iPhone speakers, you won't hear this, but you can see in the visualizer that it's perfectly like a perfect standing wave, and you can see how those waves are all interlocking. But then what I can do is I can there's a knob here called 12 EDO morph. So any tuning that you bring up in Infinitone, you can actually morph slowly to standard 12 tone tuning. So you can either use that in a musical purpose, like you can if you're playing in 12, you can kind of come in and out of 12, but you can also use it to see how horribly out of tune 12 actually is.
That's so fun. Oh my
So
goodness, I love that.
I'm gonna put on a just a square wave, so there's a little more harmonics. I'm gonna morph 12 EDO. You can see here. These are the closest notes that we have. I think actually I put in.
Oh my God, when you did that, it was so much more like I've seen so many demonstrations where people just play an in tune chord and then switch it to 12 and I'm like, "Oh, I notice." But
Yeah,
it's like a little tweak that makes it a little warbly. And when you did that, I was just like, "Wow, that was so different." That was a lot more different than I thought it would be. It almost makes me think there's like an extra note in there that I didn't notice or something. But no, it's just 12 EDO.
but here's the
That's
12.
wild.
Yeah, so that's 12.
Oh, it's because the 11th and the 12th and the 13th harmonic together, if they're in their 12th tone equivalents, create a chromatic cluster. But in the harmonic
Yeah,
series, it just smooths out entirely. Oh, so you get
yeah,
like a third shrinking down to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
That's
those are the closest.
hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
We should use that in the demonstration as to why 12 tone is out of tune, because that would be so much more effective than just playing a major third and then switching it to 12 tenths major third, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've noticed that myself too, is that it's that, when I've done those demonstrations of but just to try it. But I have another demo, this educational section here of tuning comparison, where I have the bottom half tuned in Justin's Nation and the top half of the keyboard tuned in standard 12. So, so here, play one with one hand and one. That's pretty obvious. Like, dominant chords are pretty good for comparison.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. Well, I love all the tools you're showing off here. So you've got the scale in that window, you've got the shape, you've got the keys, you've got ones that you can press to create a chord and glide out. Is there a
Yeah.
way that you can use key triggers for morphs? Like if you have one chord and you want to morph to another one, can you press a key trigger to morph it from tuning A to tuning B? Or can you just use it to go between scale options?
Yeah, you can use it for the manual morph.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, so not for the manual, for the automatic morph. So for example, here's just another progression. See if you recognize this one.
It's giant steps.
Exactly. And so there I'm using it, and then I can change the glide time, make it really like trippy giant steps. Like,
Yeah.
um, so I'm using the key triggers. What I'm doing here is I'm just playing the chord with one finger. I have the voicing sort of stacked out on one finger. I'm actually just changing the with the left hand. And I can even the thing that's cool about it is I can actually change the order of the chords too. So I can go like, so that was
Yeah.
just playing a whole tone scale up and then a different whole tone scale down and reordering the order of those chords. And but for manual morph, if you want to actually go in here and change that, you would have to do that in your DAW at
Yeah.
the moment. So that would be a great feature for us to add. And what you could do is just assign the key triggers, like in Ableton, for example, you can put uh, any series of notes as a parameter change. So you could say, okay, I have these series of these keys I can trigger this on the left side, and these keys I can trigger that on the right side, and then you could change that in the real time. But we don't have that built in to the plugin yet.
I think almost the way you're using it now, as opposed to one, makes me think this is a insane chord sequencer as well. Like I wasn't really thinking of it that way before with Infinitone 1, but with Infinitone 2 it's like you've got these chord progressions and you can mix them up and you can manipulate them in various ways and it's really quite something to see. It's just so versatile. I didn't notice this until this time, but the animation of the notes in the scale sliding to their new respective spots and the color changing in order to do that. That's the level
Yeah,
of
it changes as we
detail.
go. Yeah.
So is red always C or is it more like 1/1?
There's 2 points of reference. One is like a basically a scale reference where it's measuring it's displaying the scale from 1/1 regardless of the fundamental, and there's also one where it's the reference on the left side here is fixed, but basically red is always 1/1 essentially. And here's something that is very 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 new and never done before, and that is, I don't know if you explored this yet, the dynamic tuning.
I have not because whenever I explore these sorts of dynamic tuning things, I never know exactly where I end up and usually I like to know, but sometimes there's situations where I like to not know. So I will
Yeah.
definitely be exploring it in the future, but I have not done it for used it for anything yet.
This is pretty trippy for people who have perfect pitch, who associate a pitch with a particular key. It's pretty hard to dissociate that. Um, so when I've been using this with people who have perfect pitch, Mr. JC being one of them, he it's really disorienting. So we don't have a button to sort of like readjust according to the nearest note. It's still just wandering around. But the difference between this dynamic tuning and other stuff like Hermode tuning and other attempts at doing that before is you as a user or me as a preset creator can add in any harmonic structure that I want.
Yeah.
And it'll analyze the whatever's being played. There's no chord bank or anything. It'll analyze it acoustically, and give you the simplest basically waveform within your sort of possibilities that you assign it to choose from. So
Oh, that's huge because I feel like all the other dynamic tuning tools I know always snap it to like 5 limit JI or 7 limit JI or whatever, but you could just design your own.
exactly, this is not
Oh
the
my
case.
God.
Yeah. So based on the analysis
Mind blown over
method
here.
Based on the analysis method that I use currently, though it'll be improved with time, there is some level of inaccuracy if you're using a temperament like 31, where it's sometimes a little bit hard to distinguish between different results because of the the tempered wave the tempering of the notes. But
Huh.
if I put in so this one I have basically 13 limit sort of 12. I have a 12 tone scale but with 13 limit possibilities. So I have 11 here, right? I
Yeah.
can use that 11 as a pivot point. I hold that. That's going to become the 3. Okay.
And you can just keep going.
Yep. There I'm modulating by 11s, and I can just keep going. I can modulate by 7s too.
But now your C key sounds like A.
People with perfect pitch.
That's so
Um,
fascinating. Wow.
and teens. There you go.
Yeah. Wow. That's really wonderful. Could you do it based on non-JI intervals, or do you have to enter JI intervals?
Currently, it's doing an acoustic analysis. So if the waveform is pretty wonky, it'll have a hard time knowing what to choose.
Yeah, it makes
Like
sense.
31 works pretty well. Like I have one that's I don't have it in here because it's a little bit temperamental. Temperamental.
Ah, very good.
I genuinely hope that the listeners of this podcast can appreciate that one.
They will, don't worry.
They've been tuned
I
to
I hope they use it to name like 3 new temperaments. We'll have Subhraag temperament coming out soon.
the guy who never used temperaments having a temperament named after him. That would be the
That would be really funny.
I don't
It's
say I
too hard
never used temperament.
too hard to get
I
a temperament named after you. Well, you just used one there that was really cool. Actually, I'm trying to figure out in my brain what it is, but I'm not like I haven't ventured into 11 limit enough to know, but like the very fact that you like used an 11 over 8 and then made that your 3 and then made
yeah.
that 11/8 its 3 and did that like a
I mean
certain
that
amount of
could
times.
become
That's a temperament right there. We should
could be a
figure out what the
temperament.
temperament is. Not right now, but later. I'll tell you
Okay,
what it is
yeah.
later. Hey there, this is Editing Stephen in Post here to talk to you about the temperament this might result in. Now, it could result in just about anything depending on where you'd like to end up, but I came up with a fun probable theory. So the idea is that you have maybe a perfect fifth or a major chord with the 11 over 8 on top, and then that 11 over 8 becomes a 3 over 2 towards another root. Now, you can summarize that motion by saying that the root of the chord keeps going down by a 12 to 11 ratio, or 12 over 11. And I thought since maybe we did that around 4 times, that it might be good to find out where that note was and temper out the distance between it and a comma that used similar frequency ratios. So since we were definitely using perfect fifths and 11 over 8, I decided to try and temper it out with the Pythagorean tritone of 729 over 512 arbitrarily, because it seemed pretty close to that. If you chain 4 12 over 11s in a row, you get the ungodly 20,736 to 14,641 ratio, and it is slightly lower than 729 to 512. The 20,736 to 14,641 ratio is about 602 cents. And the 729 to 512 ratio is about 612 cents. So when we multiply those out, our comma is 131,769 to 131,072. That is about 9.18 cents. Looking this comma up on the xenharmonic wiki, I see that it's been named the Alfarabian comma, named after Al-Farabi. I think it's because it is a comma that uses frequency ratios of 2, 3, and 11. On the xenharmonic wiki page, it describes this comma as the amount by which a stack of two 128 over 121 diatonic semitones falls short of a 9 over 8 whole tone. Admittedly, probably a slightly simpler description, although we got to the interval a different way. There's always various ways that you can get to a comma. When I plug it into the temperament finder, I unfortunately get the error didn't work.
Okay. But it just keeps going. I'm like a temperament.
That's so wild. You know, it makes me think that, like, a lot of the chord progressions that I've been trying to write lately for a big project down the road come from the mindset of using pivots that are xenharmonic to get to new chords. Like, essentially doing this in effect, but with more heady results because I'm like in a tuning system and I have to name it according to that tuning system instead of just like drifting. So it might be really interesting to try this out and sort of use it in a similar way, but see how things could get different.
Mm-hmm. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I know it was James Mulvale. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does stuff like that's sort of inspired by Infinitone, like the morphs, but he'll use like the chromatics of a large numbered EDO to kind of morph. So that's another option too, is to sort of get from one place to the other, sort of like chromatically like a morph, but you're actually staying within the tuning, which I think is a pretty cool idea.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so you like could do dynamic tuning where it doesn't just calculate J on the fly, but you have an equal tempered system and it's playing the closest approximates.
Yeah, yeah, you could do that too.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. That might be a good segue into seeing a little bit of what I did in my project if you'd like to take a look at
Yeah, let's do
it.
it. I will pass the baton.
All right, sweet. Here we go. Moment of truth.
Creepy Santa guy.
Yes, this will be great. Okay. This isn't the full session because this is really old of me, but the software I like is spread among my two computers.
Oh,
So
okay.
Infinitone 2 is on this new computer, which doesn't have my Absinthe, which is a synth that I love on my old computer, but they don't make it anymore. So actually I'm trying to figure out how to move it to this new one. So anyway, that means that for this project, I actually used 3 different sessions and then stitched them together in video. So the first session
Okay.
was the one where I was using all my old synths and in 14 tone equal temperament, and then
Mhm.
37 on the Lumitone. And then the middle section
Huh?
was me talking about how great the Infinitone would be as a Christmas present, and about my weight problem. And then the next one, after that, is the Infinitone Jam. I also discovered that the voice that I was doing for Santa is basically just essentially like a Daniel Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood voice, um, which is weird. So anyway, here's what I have going on. I have some. Oh, it's dragging all of them. That's interesting. So I have some MIDI data here, and then
Huh?
I have video tracks for each thing. So like here, you can see that Reaper lets me do a video track like this.
Huh?
And then I also had this one too with the visual. So I just use screen capture for that to put them all together, which is nice. And then you can also see the morphing that's going on and the scale visual.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so what's going on here is if I'm starting from, I think I should probably just use the Infinitone visual. Is from the beginning, what's happening is I'm playing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, but I'm not playing the whole melody. Basically just expanding on the theme that goes ba da 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 ba da 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 da. So it's like a really straightforward rhythm, right?
Yeah.
So here I'm doing that using 14, and then let me see if I can get the morph. Ah, here we go. So here's like the morph amount in the window. So here's what we play in
Wow.
14, and then you'll see that at the end, when it cadences and ends, it morphs into 37. And then here, I do something in 37, and then at the end of that, it morphs back into 14. So
Uh-huh.
the cadential moment is tied with the morphing moment. in these first two
Ah,
parts. And then the rest of it is a nonsense experiment for myself, which I had to try maybe like 10 times to be satisfied with because it was really hard to figure out how to play anything. But of course I did this to myself, duh. Um, the scale that I morphed between was a oh wait, I can actually open Infinitone here. Why can I get rid of that video? I can. Okay. So I've got two scales here.
uh-huh.
And here's the first one. Where's the second one? Oh, the morph isn't really displayed. So right here, there's one scale going to the other. And so this
Yeah.
scale is a scale in 14 tone equal temperament that's based off semaphore 9 because it was the scale that I was using. And then I added other chromatic notes so that I could have all 12 notes. Because,
Mhm.
what happens is like if you have an end note tuning and you morph to another tuning, but the number of notes per octave is not n, you get like things
Yeah.
displaced across the keyboard, right? So what I wanted to do was I basically wanted about a 9-note tuning with some chromatic flavor, but I put 12 unequal notes per octave in both morphs so that everything could stay octave equivalent everywhere. So this
Makes sense.
scale is a subset of 14-tet, and then when we slide along here, we get this scale, which is a subset of 37 tone equal temperament. If I release it, it goes back to A because it's automated to A. So I'll hold it here for B. So right
Yeah.
here, you'd see that there's like 1/37th of an octave in those small microtonal pieces. And then there are also steps of 7 and steps of
Uh-huh.
5 and 4 and 3. But it's mostly a 7/1 vibe, so I was hoping for some shimmer. So now let's play this and I'll show you. Or will I? Close window. I don't know why there's a new thing for that to tell me to close the window. But here, let me show you how it changes. I'll also say that in the first part, like basically I had to figure out something to play in 14 and something to play in 37. And in 14, I knew what I wanted to play exactly, kind of in C. And then in 37, I went to A and played that. But of course, it doesn't sound like A. It sounds like something else. So the things I'm playing both have, I think, neutral thirds and sub minor thirds and super major thirds. So it's really all over the place. Okay, so here we go. Now let's take a listen. 37. Now that second one doesn't seem as effective, right? Because it's completely based on chance almost, because I don't actually know what all of the notes are doing at any given time. This is just a playground for me.
Yeah.
So this first one just sounds like completely like, ooh, crazy, right? Gets it right in the
Yeah.
pocket. And then this one mostly sounds the same. It doesn't move as much. So that's
Yeah.
my problem as an architect. But anyway, now what happens is we start to ping pong back and forth with the morphing, and it gets faster so that things become crazier. So you see what's going on here. This is, going between 14 and then hitting 37, 14 and then 37. And then at the last part, since I decided I liked 14 more than 37, I just stayed in 14 and created an ending that's 2-5-1. But the 2 is a very special sharp 9 chord in 14 tone equal temperament that has a relatively in tune shape on the Infinitone. And then
Yeah.
there's like a dominant chord that uses some of the same notes, and then the 1 chord, which is like crazy minor. So here, we can take a look at the Infinitone visual at the same time if you want.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, here we go. Oh, I just want to pause and mention that I'm really proud of that one, because what I did here is I was like, okay, I've been in C, so now if I'm morphing to a new area, I want to cycle through more keys. So like the idea is the chords that I'm playing, I might be playing like C minor and then F minor, even though really they're neutral thirds and the theme is normally in major, but it's all messed up, right? So I play C and then F, and then I'm like, okay, what if I play a B flat shape and then an E flat shape? Then I go into this weird new territory and justify landing in a different spot, and it coincides with the morph so that as it's moving, it's morphing. F, B flat, E flat. Another thing I started to discover too in these improvisational moments is that like if I just held out chords since I was morphing a lot, it would probably end up being interesting. And also, the theme that starts at the beginning, like that ba da 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 da, that theme is kind of repetitive. So if you just like stay in that area while something is morphing underneath you, you'll get this wonderful. That's a really good one too. I'm also proud of that one. That one's a nice one too. I tried to avoid the 37 shimmer, so I tried to not play certain half steps a lot that I knew about in this section. It made it harder than I expected. So this thing right here, there we go. So this one right here, this is the sharp 9 chord I'm talking about. It sounds surprisingly kind of similar in 37, even though it's wiggling around. And I think it's because my ear has gotten a little bit used to morphing at this point. Like, it doesn't seem as jarring, even though it still is. It's like, this is like the sharp 9 chord.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the 5 going to the 1 there. And that's the same thing that happens at the end here. Oh, wait, here we go. Here's the sharp 9 chord from 14. See, that shape is pretty close.
Yeah.
And that shimmery shape at the top is so cool with the dots. I don't even know how I got that, but it's like this wonderful 5/1 cadence moment. There is there are a lot of things that I nailed in this video and a few things that I didn't feel like I nailed as much as I would have liked to have done. Like for example, there's this thing where if you use just the right 14 tone scale in the melody for Santa Claus is Coming to Town, you know, like do 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 do. That little jump is a tritone from like the 4 going to the 7 going up to the 1. And using the semaphore scale that I'm using, it's possible to make that distance so small that it's a 4th instead. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm inordinately emphasizing that 4th in my voicing here. Right? And so here, it's a 4th now. So it's squashed. Well, it felt better just then than in the video. That's interesting. Maybe it only counts if I'm singing, but yeah. Well, anyway. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was fun and illuminating, and we got to see some cool
That's
Infinitone
wild.
tricks. You got some fun
Yeah,
morphing going on here. Yeah.
well,
This is
I
such a
think
fun
that
thing.
the human brain is so amazing how things can be in these wackiest, weirdest tunings that we've never heard before, yet we can still make sense out of it somehow. It's like
Yeah.
it's amazing that our brain can process all that. And
Yeah.
what's also really interesting is it's so amazing to put a piece of technology out into the world and have somebody do something with it that is so different from anything that I would have done with it.
Ah.
Like that, just to see the diversity, like put a tool, with a hammer and a saw, and what you can build anything. It's like that
Yeah.
with Infinitone, and I'm that's like the number one exciting thing for me with all of this stuff is not. I mean, I built it kind of selfishly in a lot of ways because this is the tool that I need for my music to move forward, and I can't move
Yeah.
forward if I don't have this tool. So it's like almost a totally selfish phenomenon. But, yeah, but I'm trying to bridge the gap with music makers at large, so it's understandable and accessible and usable. But it's largely selfish. But I just absolutely love to see what other people come up with, particularly if it's something that I would have not thought of or not even considered doing. I think with inventors there's an extreme with that too. I mean, I was just on another podcast recently, and one of the guys was talking about a book that he read about about inventing things, and he was talking about the invention of electricity, and he decided not to go into being an inventor. He stuck with music because he heard, well, when electricity was invented, it was used to make the light bulb, but it was also used to make the electric chair. So, I shouldn't be
Very
laughing
true.
at that, but it's beautiful, but also scary. Like what you unleash when you unleash a new technology into the world. Like what is humanity going to do with it? We could do the most beautiful, profound things that could save humanity, or we could, kill. And
Right. Yeah. Crazy.
and I think with the power of these harmonics too, I think we have a new level of ability to transmit information of all kinds, to transmit feelings, to transmit ways of being, and any of those, the dark and the light, can be infused into music. And so it's both beautiful and a little bit scary to be able to see the wide range of things that can be created or could be created. But this is creepy and weird in the most beautiful way. I just every time you create a video, it's just like I feel something that I've never felt before.
That's my
It
goal. Oh, that's so
puts me in a new
wonderful.
new territory of like, well, I didn't know that was possible to feel that. It's like crazy.
Yeah. That's what I'm after. I'm always after those kinds of things. Yeah, it's great to hear that. And I hope I do the tool justice. There's so many cool things in it. And I'm wanting to use Infinitone for morphing between two similar intonations but playing the same
Yeah.
chord progression. So like in the choir synth that I have on my old computer with Infinitone, shimmering between a JI and 19 tone version of a chord progression for like D2.
You can do very, very subtle stuff too. Like that's the whole range of it. You can do these very subtle tweaks that just make that very subtle, beautiful difference that you need, or you can do wild, extreme stuff, such as we just witnessed.
Absolutely, yeah, and anywhere
Yeah.
in between. Well, that's
Yeah.
great. Well, thanks so much for talking to me about Infinitone 2. What else would you like to say about the plugin, or where people can find it, or where people can find you?
Yeah, the plugin is available at infinitone.com, infinitone.com. And there's a free trial if you want to download it. It'll run for 15 minutes before you have to restart it, and then but you can do that as many times as you want. And there's a getting started video. We have a Instagram, Infinitone Music, and I'm always posting sort of fun, wacky, wild, exploratory things that I create with Infinitone. Like one of the ones I did most recently was I was on a hike in the Sonoran Desert in Tucson, Arizona, and I looked at the saguaro cactus, and I thought, ooh, what would happen if I plucked that needle? And I plucked it, and it made like sounds like, oh, I can make music. So I have videos like playing a melody on a barrel cactus, and I use Infinitone to capture the frequencies from those scales and from the cactus scale, and I built a chord progression around it and made a little beat with a chord progression that accompanied the melody I played on the cactus.
Oh, I love it.
And I don't have a video of it yet, but like there's presets also where I took the song of a nightingale, and I tried to capture the frequencies and the melody that it was playing. I slowed it down, and I harmonized the melody and sort of made a JI jazz chord progression out of a nightingale song. So
Oh,
there's
that's awesome.
possibilities are limitless when it comes to what you can do. So yeah, just keep track of our social media, our Instagram and our TikTok. I'm always posting stuff that's fun like that as well.
Very cool. All right. Well, I will see you later.
Stephen, this was a joy. I always love talking to you. I loved our podcast last time, and this one was even more fun to do as we get to know each other better. So let's do this again sometime.
Yes, wonderful. We definitely will.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot. All right, goodbye.
Yes. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Now in Zen. Be sure to check out the Infinitone 2 software's free trial on infinitone.com. If you like what you hear, please leave a review on iTunes and spread the word about the podcast. Any help is always appreciated. A special thanks to our patrons over at Patreon, both the xenharmonic patrons and the xenharmonic gods: June Dai Bates Kobashigawa, Naren Rattan, Mike Battaglia, Adam Freese, Matthew Sheeran, Hector McGuffin, Leland O. Weigel, Amy Coleman, Joe Weigel, and Tina Harmon Carto. Catch you next time on Now in Zen, where our next episode will feature Julian Woods.